Welcome to the show. I'm here today with Catherine Ashton from the Giant Squid Group. Hey, Catherine, how you doing today?
I am great, Travis. Thanks so much for having me here today. How are you?
Man, I am bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and just ready to go. I've been
Me
up
too.
literally for hours. I can do anything I set my mind to, including have a great interview with you. I know we're going to get in today and we're going to talk about the three pillars for growing your grant program, but give us a little background on you, the Giant Squid Group, and why you do what it is that you do.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Travis. I have been in fundraising pretty much since I graduated college. It's the only job I've ever had, and for better or worse. And in 2017, I took what I had learned being in house for about 10 years and launched Giant Squid Group. And we are a small consultancy that works with small and startup nonprofits to help them learn to fundraise. We joke that no one starts a nonprofit because they love fundraising. You fall into it for better or worse. Some of us love it and some of us hate it. But no matter where you are in that journey, we are here to help you. And a huge part of what we do is help people build better grants programs because, man, learning how to write grants does not come easily. There's a lot that goes into it. So we want to help people just kind of jump the line, learn from us, and write better grants.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It seems like grant writing, people have like a love hate relationship. They love to hate it or they hate to love it. And there's so many organizations out there that they're either on board with grants or like, man, we're gonna go get some grants, or they're just not even interested. Like grants, why would I waste my time with grants? I got to qualify my nonprofit that is essentially starting. I've got nothing to build it on, and they want to know all of these things. I need the grant now. I don't need it when I have the money to qualify for their grant. I need it before I have the money to qualify for the grant. So what do you tell startup nonprofits that don't have any kind of background or
Mhm.
haven't really accomplished anything yet before they're going to write a grant?
Absolutely. So if you're going to start building a grants program, I think the first thing you have to have is patience, which, we're here to talk today about the three core pillars of launching your grants program. And I'm going to call patience even the fourth one, 1B, before you get into it, because you really have to make sure you're grant ready. And that's something that can be so frustrating as a startup nonprofit, just like you said, Travis. I want to do it. We've got the gusto, we've got the programs, but when we come to submit grant applications, we're hitting a dead end. What do we do? And so it starts with being grant ready, which is looking at your program as a whole and really asking yourself, is it worth funding? Is a funder going to say, I get it. I understand what you're doing. I see you have a roadmap for success and I know how you're going to get there. And until you can really say, yes, I can check the box of if I'm grant ready, you can't really start writing. So that getting organized, getting your grant readiness going is the key.
I gotcha. You know, I was in two organizations where we didn't apply for any grants. We did fundraisers, we did book signings at one of our nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
We held concerts for the other one, and there was never any talk about being interested or searching for or looking for or finding grants. We're going to get into the three pillars here in a second. What's really your first pillar, not your 1B, not your one
Yeah.
Bravo, but your first
Yeah.
real pillar that you need to get your grants program ready?
So if you are setting out to write and submit your first grant, awesome. Like it's a big step, regardless of whether you've been around for 10 years or you're in day one. The first thing that I always like to do is have a strong grant boilerplate. And that grant boilerplate is basically your roadmap for writing. And your boilerplate is a template essentially, and it can get some flack, right, if you just write the same thing over and over again, but it's essentially your cover letter if you think about you're applying for a job. So you write your grant boilerplate and you outline what you do, your program. What is it about your program that is different? What do you actually do day by day? If you're an animal rescue, you wouldn't just say, we're an animal rescue. You're going to tell me you're a dog rescue who works specifically with poodles who have been abused, right? That level of specificity. And then in your grant boilerplate, you're going to write why it matters. And that's an area where a lot of small and startups stumble. The fact that you need cash to pay your bills is not why your work matters. And it can be very, very tempting to say, our statement of need is we need your money. I get it. We all need to pay our bills, but that's not making the world a better place. So if you're an animal rescue, you're going to talk about the animals you save. If you are working with people who are experiencing homelessness, you're going to talk about why it is important for people to be sheltered. And that statement of need should really lay out a compelling picture of the problem that society is facing, with some qualitative research, some quantitative research, maybe some stories that you've experienced, and then why your organization is uniquely positioned to solve it. And that's another area where I think we stumble. There are a lot of nonprofits, and you know that yours is unique. I know that yours is unique, but you do need to be able to articulate that in that elevator speech, why we can solve this specific problem with these specific programs. Another huge stumbling block that funders really want to see that your boilerplate needs to have is your goals and your objectives. That is something that sometimes we forget about until the 11th hour, and we're looking at a grant application going, what the heck am I going to say here? And those can be articulated in many different ways. You know, the nonprofit industry, we love our acronyms. You might see them as goals and objectives, or OKRs, or KPIs. I don't care what letters you throw at them. But what I want to know is, what are you setting out to do this year as an organization? And how are you going to know you got there? And if you're just starting out and you are that organization that's just writing your first grant, that could be as simple as, we are going to rescue 100 dogs. We are going to write and publish one book, and we're going to do that by hosting this event or having these outreach opportunities. Really, what you're showing funders and yourself is, we have a plan for getting to where we want to go. This is how we achieve our mission. And you can look at goals and objectives from organizations that have been around a while longer and get so overwhelmed by how sophisticated they are. You'll get there. My goals and objectives sometimes are, this is the amount of clients I want. This is how many grants we want to write. It's really not rocket science. And lastly, you have your evaluation, which is, how do you know if you're successful? Again, that might at some point be some peer reviewed, really sophisticated research, but for now it could be, we do pre and post surveys, or this is how we measure our success. Whatever you do to show that you're successful, you need to be able to share. So putting all those pieces together in a grant boilerplate and writing it in a way that makes sense to someone who isn't living and breathing your work every day is step one.
See, when I try to write something for a group of people that don't know who I am, or I'm not sure where their, I don't know, knowledge of the subject matter lies, I try to write it for like my third grade neighbor. Like, how do I explain it to my third grade neighbor? This guy has no idea what I'm talking about, no idea what I do. How do I write it in such a way to make sure that they can understand? And I'm not saying the grantors are incapable of learning that, I write the same way for professionals, for college professors, for the president, to make sure that there's no ambiguity when I'm trying to say. And I know if you're in the startup phase, like most of my listeners, you have a hard time even really articulating what your mission might be. And
Absolutely.
anyone you ask in the organization might have a different answer, or it's not straightforward. Something as easy as, where does the money go, might actually create anxiety when you try to answer it, because you're like, what do I say? Do I say that, I took this guy out to lunch yesterday and I'm not sure what to say? Here's the deal. If you can't explain it to your neighbor's kid, I think you're doing it wrong. It doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be souped up language. It doesn't have to hit 4 syllables for every descriptive word you're trying to use. Just say what it is, the heck it is you do, and how you plan on doing it. Like, I got a friend that's got a feral cat rescue. I think she is now against me saying feral cat, but homeless cat. I don't know. Cat in the alley. She rescues
I think
cats.
you went the wrong direction there.
I don't know. I don't know. Alleys aren't a bad thing. I bowl in them all the time. I don't understand what the problem is, but she talked my ear off for like 2.5 hours about animal rescue and why she cares and this and that. And I was like, wow, you must just have money flowing and be able to talk like that. She's like, I don't ever talk to anybody about it, and I don't ask for money. And if you're in that spot, my heart goes out to you, but you're only in this game because you don't have the money you need to solve the problem yourself. That's why you created the structure of a
Yes.
501c3. That's why you are looking at writing grants. So suck it up, ask the question. Hey, this is what we're
Yes.
we're doing. This is how we're going to get there, and we would love your help in the form of dollars to make this work for us. Don't be scared to ask for the money. That's what it is for. That's why they're doing it, because they want to give you money. Don't get in the way by using complicated language or not understanding what it is that you do.
Yes, absolutely. And this is not your graduate thesis, to your point. And grant writing sometimes can be very sophisticated if you get to that point. But I agree and want to reiterate what you said. Write like you're a normal human being talking to another normal human being, and tell them what you do. Don't try to make it sound fancier than it is. If you rescue feral cats, say, we rescue feral cats. Your goal and objective might be, we are going to rescue 100 feral cats and 80% of them will be adopted by the end of the year. That tells me exactly what you do. I don't know anything about feral cat rescue, but now I get it. I get what you're doing and why it matters. And you have to think about, your funders aren't your third grade neighbor, but they are busy and they're reading a lot of grant applications. And so making it easy for them to understand how you connect the dots and make a difference really matters. So that language is important. Writing is not the be all and end all of grants, but it is a big part of it. And so I always start every client relationship with, we need to write your grant boilerplate or rewrite your grant boilerplate. I will say it is a living, breathing document as well, right? Because programs change, things happen. I think last year we saw that COVID turned us all on our heads and we had to all start talking differently. Sometimes a grant funder might say, in 500 words, tell us everything you've ever done. And all of a sudden your beautiful 10-page document is looking pretty sparse. And you're basically saying, we rescue cats, please give us money. But you still have the foundation there. Sometimes they might give you 300 characters. It's ridiculous. But having the pillar, having the foundation and knowing what you're saying and why it matters confidently helps you then adapt it to each grant application.
Absolutely. And for some of the language piece, you want to make sure that you're not using technobabble. That person
Yes.
might not be familiar with your industry. Like it's just like talking to a programmer to help you with your website, and they start throwing out words that they think that you have any. Don't worry, my team will fix that. The technobabble piece, you throw out words that perfectly explain what's going on, but they're not in the same industry. They don't have the corporate knowledge, they don't have the experience to understand what those words mean. I
Mhm.
can explain to you how an electrical circuit works, and I can use volts, amps, ohms, all of these things. And some people in the room might understand what I'm trying to say. But if I explain it as water flowing through a garden hose, everyone in the room is going to understand what I'm trying to say. So if you got the newbie out there reading your grant application and he doesn't know the words that you're using, you've lost. It's an automatic no. They can't understand what you're trying to tell them. You've missed it. You've completely missed it. They've set yours aside. They can't go on. Also, don't use unexplained acronyms. If you're going to
Yes.
use an acronym to save characters, like it sounds like is a thing here, explain the acronym spelled out the first time. Make sure that you do that. There's nothing like getting a page full. I'm in the Navy, right? Page full of acronyms is how we talk.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
we are skilled. We understand. We've been trained to know what those that technobabble is and what the acronyms stand for. So when we say all the TLAs that we use. TLA is three-letter acronym. Yeah.
Hmm.
All the TLAs that we use. We know that inherently. But if we're speaking to someone else or giving someone an aircraft tour or something different like that, we don't use the technobabble. We don't use the acronyms because it doesn't help us reach our goal of them understanding what it is that we're talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And really, what it comes down to is write something that people can understand and write something that tells your story. And if you spend the time doing that and you spend the time sitting in that discomfort, like you said, this might be totally new to you if I ask you to give me your elevator pitch on why your organization matters. But if you spend the time to do that, then you can write better grants. And funders are going to say, oh, I understand what they're doing and why it matters. And ultimately, that's why we're here to do this. So like I said, pillar number one, having that grant language really, really nailed down, knowing it's going to change, knowing it's going to be adaptive, knowing that every single grant you write is going to be different, but you still need that foundation to fall back on.
Perfect. I would just write it and give it to the neighbor kid and see if he can tells me what it is that I do. Hey,
Absolutely.
hey,
Absolutely.
read this one pager here, and then tell me what it is that you think that we do. And they'll tell you. They'll be
Yes.
like, I don't understand what you're trying to say here. This doesn't make sense. And then you know, you have that
Then
benchmark.
you
You
know.
know where you
And
stand.
another really wonderful thing about going through this process and writing your grant boilerplate, whether you are launching a grants program a little longer into your tenure as an organization or really just starting out, is it makes you focus on what really matters in your mission. I worked with a wonderful organization here in Austin, Texas, that was a musical organization. They were a local community choir, and they were writing grants in the way that you're, quote, supposed to do if you look at any sort of grant template online. And they were boring, quite frankly. And I talk to my clients like that, so no one's going to be offended. The grants were boring. They said things like, we bring music to Austin, please give us money. And as I started to get to know them, personally and having candid conversations over a glass of wine or talking about their upcoming events, I realized that yes, they were bringing music to Austin, but they were also commissioning new music from local young composers and going around the world and sourcing some of the best talent in classical music. And they had this really strong focus on reshaping classical music for the younger generation, which was exciting. It was exciting to hear. It was exciting to read about. And if you looked at their grants from 2 years ago, you would not know that. A funder would have no way of knowing that. And they were a little scared to put it out there because it wasn't, quote, what you were supposed to do. And when we started really bringing in the actual work and phrasing it in that why does this matter way and telling people what they were going to do to achieve success, they started getting money. So telling your story honestly, truly, succinctly, and in a compelling way is really the core of grant writing, just like any other fundraising.
Yeah, and if COVID taught us anything, if you do things the way you're quote unquote supposed to do them, you're just going to end up closing up shop, and then you're not going to be able to provide services anymore. So don't
Yes.
stick with the same. Time to
Yes.
innovate and do something new. Pillar number two. Let us know about pillar number two for
Pillar number two is sounds so simple, and yet for so many of us, particularly in the nonprofit world, is a sticking point is get organized. We need to know what you're going to do next. When is your next grant due? If you're listening to this, when is your next grant due? You probably have it somewhere filed in the back of your head, but you're going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go, oh, did I submit that grant proposal? Put your choice of expletive there. That is not a way to work. And in the small and startup nonprofit industry, we love to burn the midnight oil, to be scrabbling from deadline to deadline and sort of just pulling things off, as if by magic. That's not how you build a strong grants program. Grant deadlines are not flexible. I have never seen a grantor go, oh, sorry, you missed the deadline because there was a crisis. If the feral cats got out, they don't care. So you need to know when your grant deadlines are. You need to know when your report deadlines are. And you need to know where all of the pieces of your grants program are. One of the big stumbling blocks I see when we start working with a client is that they don't have access to basic documents. For instance, their most recent profit and loss statement, their most recent balance sheet, their most recent board list, all of those very boring components that grantors are going to ask for. So the first thing we do is we organize their grant files. We pull all of those attachments, their budget, their audited financials, everything that grantors ask for all the time, which you can access by looking at pretty much any grant application, and we stick them in a folder. We have that grant boilerplate, we stick it in a folder, and then we build that grants calendar with the deadlines, the proposal deadlines, the letter of intent or LOI deadlines, the report deadlines, so that you can start to make your grants calendar a really strong tool and start to make your grants program a well-oiled machine. The number one reason why people don't get grants is they don't submit, they miss the deadlines. So,
ooh, yeah,
yes,
deadlines matter. Oh, I'll get
deadlines
to it
matter.
tomorrow. Oh, no big
Yes,
deal.
yes,
They're
and
running. Some of them are running multi-million-dollar corporations,
yes,
and deadlines matter. You show up late, they're like, too bad. Good luck next year because we don't have time for people that don't have time for us.
yes, it's the first step, right? And there's one funder that I work with often that says, 1 minute past 5 p.m. we will not consider your application. It's that stringent. And so I consider, the grant due the day before because things come up. And a very common mistake that is a great way to torch your relationship with a funder is forgetting when your reports are due, which is something, if you're submitting your first grant, might be completely new to you. Many grant funders want interim and or final grant reports in a specific format with specific questions. And they like to sneak those deadlines often into your grant agreement. So they might say, here's $10,000 for your feral cat rescue. Here's a PDF that says all of this jargon. And on page 4, your final grant agreement is due August 31st. If you don't put that on your grants calendar, I can guarantee you're going to forget, and you're going to get a very pissy email from their program officer wondering where your report is. And then you're going to have to scramble to pull it together. So putting in some workflows of you get a grant in and you put those deadlines right into your calendar helps you build those sustainable relationships year over year.
Yeah, there's nothing like getting awarded a grant and then having the rug pulled out from under you. And then who knows who those people talk to?
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't know. Is there like a grantor community to people like behind the pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, right? Like is like, do they have a whole society of people and be like, oh, I cannot believe that Catherine from the giant Squid group gave us no follow-up report. Can you believe that?
Right.
Do they do that?
Right. I hope it's not quite that level of, backdoor talking, but I do think that there is definitely reputation at stake, right? Which is another reason you want to submit your best grants. And not that they're going to say, oh, they missed a deadline, it reflects poorly. But I know, here, Austin is a small town, and I think a lot of us are working in smaller cities. There's only so many funders. And if you burn a bridge with one, it is very hard to get back in their good graces. You lose that trust. And there's a power dynamic there that can be challenging. But the number one way to just keep those funder relationships going is give them what they ask for, which starts with meeting the deadlines that they request. They're busy, like you said, they've got a lot of moving pieces, and you need to show them that you are a professional organization with the capacity to use their money the way they said they wanted you to, and that starts with meeting deadlines.
Yeah, deadlines are important. It's no different than keeping a regular calendar. It's no different than showing on time to record, I don't know, a Zoom meeting for a podcast.
Right.
If I'm late, I know people that are chronically late, and these conversations come up, and they're like, "Why are you so upset that I'm late?" It's not that you're late. It's that you've told me that you don't care about me or my time. She said, "Well, I don't feel that way at all." I was like, "Then quit trying to knock off your to-do list as you're walking out the door to come meet me, because that has
Yes.
no bearing on our relationship, but you being late every single time does."
Absolutely. And the reason I'm so adamant about people getting organized, the deadlines are a huge thing, but it also is going to save you time. I know that everyone writing grants is busy and there are a lot of moving pieces. And so to know where everything is and to have your grants calendar in a format that you can trust that the deadlines are accurate and what's on it is accurate means that when you sit down to write a grant, whether it is at 3 o'clock in the morning, 9 a.m., whenever it is, you know what you're supposed to do. You know what you're working on, and you have the tools at your fingertips. And if you are wearing all the hats in your organization, time matters. Time is the number one challenge I hear from small and startup nonprofits. So make your grant program work for you. Take the time to get organized. It really helps just keep the wheels rolling.
Perfect. Tell us about pillar number 3.
So pillar number 3 is the most challenging, the most exciting, the most dynamic, which is finding the right grant opportunities. And again, if you have listened to the show before, you have heard some fabulous folks talk about where to find grants. If you have searched in Facebook groups, you know that there's a lot of folks that can recommend resources like Foundation Directory Online, Grant Watch. There's tons of resources. But at the end of the day, just like with your grant boilerplate, you have to know the rules so that you can find what works for you. Oftentimes people come to me and say, look, we made a list of 200 funders that fund animal welfare or education or health, and I'm going to apply to them all. And the fact of the matter is that's not how grant, which we call prospecting, works. Finding the right grant opportunities is just as important as your writing. Because when you start to look at all of the different parameters that go into finding the right grants, it's pretty exhaustive. So I could take that list of 200, and let's say we're funding our feral cat rescue. And I'm going to look and say, great, animal welfare. Well, this one's funding whales. So just because they like animals doesn't mean they like us. And it's not judgmental. It doesn't mean that they don't care about cats. It just means that they've decided that whales are their funding focus. So all of a sudden, now that list has gotten shorter. I might look at another one and say, they're only funding in Oklahoma, and I'm down here in Austin. Again, not a judgment on my program, but their funding priority is focused geographically. So now I need to go through and filter for location. And then I might say, they're funding spay and neuter. This is kind of testing my animal knowledge programs, but we don't do that. So yes, they like cats. Yes, they're here in Austin, but what they do isn't what we do. And if I submit to them, I am not going to get funded. They're not going to bend the rules for us. We're not going to wow them with how amazing our language is or how cute our cats are or how important our work is. They have decided that is where they are going to invest their money, and we just don't fit. So all of a sudden that list of 200 is pretty short. Maybe it's 20. Now maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 5%. And then I'm going to look and say a lot of these funders don't accept unsolicited applications. They only fund when they request that someone submits a proposal, which is such a sticking point for us when we're starting our grants program, because then you have to go and build relationships, which we'll talk about. So now maybe I have two qualified proposals that I can submit to. And that's great, because now I know that I align with their priority areas, their geographic focus, and what they like to fund. And I am going to be so much more likely to get a foot in the door than if I just sort of threw spaghetti at the wall and see what stuck. So learning how to prospect and learning how to understand where to find that information is critical. It can be frustrating. It can be fun. One sneaky tip that we've learned from doing this for 15 years is to look at an organization's 990, their tax form, because they're going to tell you everything they funded. They're going to tell you how much money they gave and to whom. And that is all public information. You can Google, any company, any foundation's 990 and find it for the most recent years and see, oh, they gave $5,000 to an organization that sounds just like ours. We're in the right direction. Or they said they liked funding cats, but it looks like last year they gave all their money to something else. I'm going to call them and see what's going on. So taking the time to do that really sets you up for success.
Now, do you find that organizations will try to like change their mission to meet what a donor is doing? Like if we were talking about feral cat rescue in Austin and based on our suggestions, are they going to add that they have an office in Oklahoma City that spays and neuters whales?
I think that sometimes is our desire, which I mean, sounds fascinating, like the booming whale population in Oklahoma City. I hear there's a real problem there.
There is a
That
port.
can be our inclination.
There is a
And
port of Catoosa that goes to the Mississippi down to the
okay,
Gulf. There is
all
a
those whales.
seaport in Oklahoma.
This might be a problem we have
In
to address.
in your face, cat, in your
Yes,
face.
I know. Live and learn. Um,
Well, I mean, who thinks about seaports in the middle of the country? It's just unless you're in that industry, you would never think of that's a thing. Like the
right.
Mississippi and the Missouri cover a huge swath of the middle of the country, and they have
Yes.
seaports, and they have
Well,
barges,
if
and
you
they have
find
all
some
sorts of things.
whales on your doorstep, please call me and we'll find funding for them.
If I find whales on my doorstep, someone's playing a prank on me. So
That's true. We have a bigger problem there
yeah.
for sure. But going back to your question, do we flex our mission? Do we try to sort of plug the holes to meet what a funder wants? People do that, and you're going to get into trouble. And I'm sure you've heard this before and you'll hear it again. Do not try to put a square peg in a round hole when it comes to grant applications, because what if they give you the money and now you have to go launch a whale program in addition to everything else? Are you going to do it well, or is it going to be a headache? You also still have to fund the other work that you're doing. So you've just taken on more work. It's not that there's suddenly a magical pile of money. You've just made a bigger headache for yourself.
Well, I just
So
can't take that money and use it however I want to.
you cannot take that money and use it however you want. And how are they going to know? Well, remember those reports?
Ugh.
Oftentimes you have to submit a budget when you submit a grant proposal, right? That says, here's how we're going to spend the money. If you give us $5,000, this is where it's going to go. And that can be salaries, overhead. You should be building in salaries into those grant budgets. It could be the cost of getting those cats neutered. It could, whatever it is, very specifically. And then when you go back to report, they're going to want to see what you said you spent and what you actually spent. So if you said we're going to spend $2,000 on cat carriers, and we ended up spending $2,500 because we bought more, great. That's a discrepancy that is very easily justified. If you said we're going to spend $2,000 on cat carriers and instead we went out and bought a boat to save whales, and we didn't tell you, the funder is going to say that you didn't use the money in the way they intended, and they can claw it back, which I have not seen often, but it is important to use the grants money that they give you in the way that isn't intended, or reach out to them and say, hey, something shifted. COVID was a great example. We're not doing anything right now because we can't leave our house. Here's how we want to use the money. Can we do that? So being very, very transparent with where and how that money is spent is important.
Yeah, but you said something that I had never really considered before. Like, what is the penalty of misusing grant money?
So I have heard of, luckily in my career, I've not experienced it, grantors basically saying, pay us back, right? So that's not good because you probably already spent the money. And if you are operating on a lean budget, you don't want that. The bigger penalty is going to be they're not going to fund you again. So was it worth it to, play a little fast and loose with your books for a few $1,000s and then sacrifice a potentially long-term relationship? Which leads to another real area of growth for a lot of nonprofits is if you have to change your grant proposal, or you have to change how you spend the money, or if you have a question, pick up the phone and call the funder and say, hey, I know you gave us this money to rescue cats. Well, we have this opportunity to go do something else, and it's really important to us. Can we reallocate the funding? And I have never had a grant funder say no. They just want to know that you are working in pursuit of your mission, and they want to know that you are working within the guidelines of their grant proposal. So they are people, they're helpful, they want to see the same change you want to see. So just pick up the phone and talk to them. They're not scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a 7-Eleven. They're coming in and buying a Twinkie and then just walking away, and that's the end of the transaction. You're actually talking about
Yes.
building relationships with these donors, just like a regular donor you would have that you see at the Rotary Club. They're that kind
Yes,
of person. Keep them involved. Keep them
absolutely.
out. Share your wins with them. Let
Share
them
your
know
wins.
that the winning that they helped fund, that they're part of the victory too.
Yes. And the more grants you write and the more funders you get to know, my hope is that you start to see your role in their grant portfolio and your work as part of the societal change, the systems level change that they're looking for. So funders have priority areas like animal welfare, like homelessness, education, because that is the systems level area that they want to influence. They want to see an end to animal cruelty, or they want to see an end to homelessness. So they're investing in organizations they think are going to move the needle in that direction. And if you have a relationship with them where you're showing them the result of their investment, which is your work and the result of your work, and you're showing them how you move towards your goals and objectives and how you're measuring success, you are going to start getting invited to have a seat at the table to make decisions, to be making policy, to be looking at their funding priorities, and to be doing really innovative work that has an impact on our communities, which is what we're all trying to do. So that's down the road. That's more advanced grant writing, but that is what funders want. They're not just writing a blank check and saying, go have fun. They really want to see that you are making the world a better place in whatever focus area they have.
You see, and that's the part that, a lot of grant writers don't talk about. I've interviewed a few. I've enjoyed all the conversations, but I keep interviewing people in the same industry. I've interviewed tons of marketing and branders. I've interviewed other nonprofit consultants. I've interviewed different grant writers because you always get a different perspective. You always get a new piece of information, and you always realize just that you're not alone. There's so many other people trying to do great work out there. I know there's something between 1.5 and 1.8 million nonprofits in the US. I know that as a member of the military that there's 53,000 veteran organizations out there trying to do good work, and they keep starting them because they're seeing a gap and services and trying to make these connections and do good things, and there's so much work yet to be done. But if you have someone like Catherine on your team, it sounds like you have a straightforward, no nonsense way of making sure your grant writing proposals are going to land with the highest probability of success. And that's what we really love about you, Catherine. So, where can
Well,
people
thank
get
you.
a hold of you and the Giant Squid Group?
So giantsquidgroup.com is where everything lives. My email is on there. And then, of course, we're on Facebook at Giant Squid Group, Instagram at Giant Squid Group, Twitter at Giant Squid Group. But we absolutely invite people to go to our website. And one of the things that we're really passionate about, which I think builds off what you just said, Travis, is there are a lot of nonprofits and we want to see collaboration. We want to see success. You know, we are in this to support nonprofits. And so we are really looking at making our services accessible, equitable. And so this year we're actually rolling out pay what you can grant writing classes. We offer scholarships for all of our programs. So oftentimes hiring a grant writer, if you're in this first startup phase, this is intimidating. It's a big investment. You can learn to do this yourself. And my hope is that you do, because if you know how to write a grant and you understand how this works, then when you hire a grant writer, you're going to collaborate with them and you're going to be more successful than just handing over the reins, which is why we have classes that are just on demand. You're, self-paced, that are very affordable. We have group coaching classes on how to write your grant boilerplate all the way through. We will be on retainer and text you at all hours of the day to make sure that things are getting submitted online and that we're following the same rules we set out to do. So visit giantsquidgroup.com and please be in touch. We'd love to hear from people.
Hey, thanks so much for being my guest today, Catherine.
Thank you, Travis. This was a wonderful way to start the morning.